Thank you so much, Dennis, for having me. So my training is as a psychotherapist, and I was in a marriage of 16 years, many of them very happy. And the last few years were not so happy, and it exploded a niche career for me. And I became recognized as LA's premier divorcee success coach because I started really advocating for divorce reform. And I was a liberal during these years, and I discovered what a free thinker was. And it wasn't until my own divorce where I saw firsthand that the family court system is nothing to do with the family. It's win-lose, and it doesn't matter how compromising you are and how much you want to mediate and how you want to put the best interests of the children first. When you're dealing with someone with a victim mentality and they get their empowerment from a victim mentality, there's nothing more to offer. We see this with the Palestinians and Israelis. And from that moment on, I became a free-thinking Trump supporter.
Yeah! Story is not common. Most women divorcing don't end up Trump supporters. So, but I do want to say something. You have no idea how I resonate to what you're saying. So this is my theory. It's just going to take 20 seconds. On divorce courts, exactly. Family courts. It's not pro-family. Couldn't agree more. But here's the interesting thing. It's not pro-man and it's not pro-woman. It's pro the irresponsible party. They're the ones who prevail in the family court system.
Yes.
Isn't that what you were saying?
Yes. The family court system, make no mistake, is more about the parents' rights than what is truly in the best interest of the children. In fact, the party who does not have the instinct to be combative, who does not want to be cutthroat, is often the family in the court system who gets hurt the most.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to say how much I resonated with that. So what are you doing now?
So what am I doing now? So I took this passion. If you're still in LA, you have no choice but to become an advocate. We are trauma bonded here in Los Angeles, and I have met the absolute best people. So in addition to becoming a very big advocate for my children, I have 3 of them, and Christina Irving is also here, another fellow parent who's running for city council. Hopefully she can introduce
herself. Please stand,
herself.
Christina, because
yes.
we welcome you here.
Yes.
Give her a hand, everybody. You know, folks, I mentioned on the air yesterday, and each day I do penitence, I voted for Jimmy Carter. I come from New York Jewish Democrats, which is redundant. They're all New York Jewish Republicans. But so that was my last vote in that direction. But I just thought I'd share.
If you were hired, you voted for somebody else.
I'm sorry?
If you were hired, you voted for somebody else.
In my heart, yes, but they don't count votes. They count votes. So back to you, Danielle. So Danielle, that's an amazing thing that you drifted in that direction from your experience. By the way, how old are your kids?
13, 11, and 9.
That's fascinating. So what schools do they go to?
I pulled them all out of LAUSD. I couldn't take it anymore. They're in a private school. So far, so good. No CRT. We say the Pledge of Allegiance. And
Wait, there's a private school in LA where they say the Pledge of Allegiance?
I know, it's rare. It's very
Do
rare.
you feel okay saying the name?
The Valley School. The Valley School.
It's called the Valley School?
Yeah, there's a bunch of other conservative families there. They have not asked about the mandates. Up until recently, the kids were able to wear no masks outside. I mean, this is
what happened now? Wait, what happened now?
Omicron.
Oh my
Yes.
God.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yes. Oh, OMC. It's not used to be OMG. Oh my God. You're joking. With Omicron, they had kids wear outdoors during recess?
My son is 9 years old. He wears thick glasses. They make him be in a mask outside playing basketball. And voting. Yes, it's horrible.
There's nothing you can do about it?
We are the minority. There's no logic anymore. There's no...
No, drop the words anymore.
Yes.
I'm serious. If you put to a vote of the parents, what do you think they would vote?
I think if it was anonymous.
Yeah, anonymous vote.
Yeah. I think it would be probably still 50-50 because we are still
Parents are that freaked out.
and those are the loudest ones.
Of course they're the ones,
Tantrums are the
clearly,
loudest.
that's right.
Yeah.
Say no,
And
that's
LAUSD,
right.
we were front and center with the teachers' unions. We were protesting all the time. We went to the school boards. The school boards are so corrupt. But I got tired and I sent them to private schools. So right now, so far, so good. If there is an issue with the mandates, I will speak up. But so far, I haven't needed to.
I have traveled the whole COVID time, and going to Florida or Texas or states like that, and then coming back here, it's jolting. It is truly jolting. It's another world. And you would think if people were intellectually honest, they would ask, okay, so are they dying like flies in Texas and Florida? Florida has by far the largest number of old people per capita, except for Maine. But Maine has so few, it's irrelevant. And they're not dying any more than in California. So how does one explain that? If all of this stuff is supposed to work. So anyway, Danielle, so how your kids doing?
I mean, they're doing okay. I mean, the real crisis is mental health crisis, and the most vulnerable population is adolescent girls. So my daughter is no exception. It's been extremely hard. I think what's not talked about is, in a year and a half of lockdown with the kids at home, they've all become addicted to electronics. And it's, even if you have passwords, even if you have screen time, all these kids can just undo it. And they need to belong, so they find their communities online with these horrible shows. And they're isolated. And also, let's not forget that, my daughter literally said to me, Mom, you are so selfish. If you got the vaccine and let us get the vaccine, we could go on field trips, I would have more friends. You're the selfish one. This is what we're dealing with in school.
This is important for you to hear. The prices paid by these policies are horrific. I hope not permanent, but they might be. They say that little kids are way behind now in speech because they don't see lips. They don't hear a lot of what is said. I don't hear half of what the waiter says to me. I think it's in my hearing, but I have a talk show host, I have great hearing. I just can't make it out. And by the way, nobody talks about this, virtually nobody. There's no such thing as nobody. How have the deaf functioned for 2 years when all they have is face reading and lip reading? Yeah?
I have my godson.
Your godson is deaf?
It has killed him.
It's killed him. I believe that. I believe that. My heart.
Where is the ADH? There should be lawsuits, right? The American Disabilities Act.
Well, yes. Well, especially given that it's useless.
Yeah.
It just is hurt. 2-year-olds on airplanes. I mean, do you understand the realm of idiocy that we have entered? This is very painful. All of this stuff.
And they're useless.
So, if I may ask, do your kids have contact with their dad?
Yes. I'm going to share with the audience what you told me. Dennis goes to me, what's your ex-husband's politics? I'm like, well, thank goodness, we're on the same page. I'm like, well, what's his stance on vaccine? Well, thank goodness we're on the same page. He's like, oh, and you'll have kids together. You should get married.
That was a good line. I'm proud of that. That's very funny. By the way, do you know, she said she was married 16 years. So I would love to know, I'm sure there's data on it, what most divorces happen after how long? And for whatever reason, I hear 16 and 17 so often. It may be total coincidence. Mine was 17 years, by the way. So yours was 17? You remember the 7-year itch?
Yes.
They meant 17-year itch.
There is correlation to the birth, after the birth of the second child.
Really? What is the correlation? What is that?
Well, because if you think about it.
No, not why. What is the correlation?
Because you need your spouse in a completely different way. You need them as a partner. When you have one child, the dynamic doesn't change so much because a lot of the way can be with the mom at home. But when you have two, and then you have sleepless nights, and there's feedings, and this and that, you need your partner in ways that affect the dynamic.
Wow, that's an interesting thing.
And sleep
So
deprivation
the
is a real
second child,
thing. Yeah.
second child
Yeah.
is a challenge to a marriage. Fifth,
Yeah.
I'm not joking, fifth probably isn't.
Right.
I think it's so what you're saying, that makes it very interesting.
And you had three.
In order to stop having a second. It was a brilliant thing for them to do, but
But we got our
nevertheless.
son, thank goodness. Two girls and a boy.
Two girls and a boy. Why do you think this has affected girls more? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. You said it affected girls. This whole COVID, staying home and electronics.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Well, I think girls in particular with hormones and just being in that age where they want to belong and their bodies are changing. I think happy people are the people who don't have time to think about how unhappy they are, and girls in particular have a long time to think about all the things and comparing themselves. Everything's about image and fitting in and filters, and it's a lot more time to think about these things, and they don't have as many as an opportunity to be out in the world.
So being out in the world would keep them busy. So
Yes.
positively busy.
Yes.
The lack of interaction with other kids, enforced for no reason. That I would think of Sweden as a model. It shows you how backwards everything is. And Israel was just as bad, my two favorite countries. But the war on children is the one that drives me the craziest. So in the last 2 years, did they have girlfriends over at the house?
I mean, luckily a lot of my mom friends are free thinkers. So we did have some friends over the house, but it depends on the age. All of our friends were the age group of my middle daughter, who's my patriot Zionist, who, thank goodness, she's a free thinker and gets it, right? But, it's my eldest daughter that I have to watch. She'll come into the car and put her mask on, roll up the window, and look at me.
Oh, wow. She needs to come to the Minion.
Yes. Good luck.
Good luck.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, God. So, where are they now? With your ex?
Yes, that is the one best thing about divorce, is that you get uninterrupted time to yourself where you can recharge.
It's sad.
And it's free babysitting.
That's fascinating. Oh, so by the way, the girls' issue was huge.
Yeah.
The number of girls who in high school announce they're really boys is much greater than the number of boys who announce they're really girls. That's what Abigail Schreier's monumental book is about. Basically, girls.
Yes.
Well, the society, I think, started screwing around with girls' minds with feminism. Just telling them you're like boys was a horrible message. They're not. And then you don't need a man. And then so they're career preoccupied. And then they wake up one day, I'd like to get married, but it's a lot harder at the age that they wake up. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. And, in my generation, it was the bulimia and the anorexia. So this, as a psychotherapist, gender dysphoria is a real thing, but it's such a small fraction of real individuals. This is really a need to belong, and there's a lot of abuse and trauma when children think if I was just another sex, everything would be better.
Right, that's right. Isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah.
If I was just the other sex. Well, they wouldn't even say the other sex because it's non-binary.
Non-binary.
That implies. So, do you have patients? Are you in practice?
So my whole career pivoted, and I very much like you. I have my tikkun olam is talking about relationships very candidly. There were many years it was very healthy, and then it became unhealthy. And so I work a lot, especially with singles, especially single Jewish. I have a Dating with Daniella niche brand. And I want people to know what...
Dating with Danielle?
Dating with Daniella. Dating with Daniella.
That's a website?
Yes.
And what happens there? They'll date you?
Listen, you marry your unfinished business. So whether it comes out now, later, or much later...
Is that your line?
No, I stole it from Terry Real.
That's a very good line.
It's a great line. So I want to be
the
real.
The first marriage is a fixer-upper.
That's your.
Those of you still in a first marriage, I salute you. I'm not joking. 50 is fine. Yes, go
Correct
on.
me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but I think it says in the Talmud that if you see a couple walking hand in hand for over 50 years, it's like a miracle comparable to that of the Red Sea. Because it's not an easy thing to do, but if you can do it, the gifts, the growth, the knowledge that comes from it is not like anything else.
That's true. You're right. Well,
But, yeah.
they say that it was hard. It's harder for God to get a couple together correctly, that fit each other than it was to split the sea. It's another. They were very realistic in many ways, the rabbis. It's a mixed bag, the Talmud, but a lot of it is gems. So you don't have to be as open as you'd like.
Yeah.
Would you like to remarry?
Dennis really finds the story under the story. So
Under the story.
Yes. I believe in marriage. I believe in modern day partnership with the gifts it gives. I would not remarry. I would never want to ever go through a legal divorce again. Maybe halakhically married I'd be open to, but to be honest, where I'm at in my life, I have a very full life. I don't need to be rescued. I'm open to be complimented, and I am in a very healthy, nurturing relationship.
And how long has that been?
It's been we've known each other 2.5 years. We've been together 1.5 years. And really, the quarantine worked for him. If it wasn't for the quarantine and not being able to date anybody else, no, but to be honest, what won me over with him, because he's not my traditional type, is his consistency, his tenderness, his devotion. I mean, he came and cooked for us. He said, "What can I fix for you? I'm at the market. What can I get for you?" And for women, we are paying attention to things after divorce that we didn't necessarily pay attention to in our 20s. And this is what I try to educate women on today. Pay attention to what counts. Consistency, predictability, following through with your word. These are what we value today.
I did a show. I should do it again. It was a male-female hour, and I said, call in, and I said, only women, please. How do you define masculinity? And it was fascinating. They basically said the predictability is a very big thing. By the way, predictability is true for everybody. You don't want predictability in a movie, but you do want it in life. You want your friends to be predictable. You want your boss to be predictable. You want your employee to be predictable. It's a very beautiful virtue. So it sounds boring. It's incredibly wonderful and even exciting to be with a person who is predictable. Not exactly in every little thing, but basically yes. But the word they used was responsible. A responsible man, one child.
He has one child.
Right.
He's a wonderful father. That's just something else you pay attention to. Also, pay attention to how he treats his former wife. They have a very good relationship. To me, that speaks volumes.
So would he answer, whether it's you or any other woman, do you also plan on never getting remarried? Would he say yes, I plan
Yes.
on never getting remarried?
We are on the same page, and thank God we're on the same page.
Right.
Politically, he takes me to every single Trump rally, which is another reason I thought,
Every time you say Trump,
yes.
Is he Jewish?
Not only is he Jewish, he's Israeli. Only Israelis.
Very nice.
Yes.
I don't agree with you on the remarrying, just for the
I
record.
hear you.
Yeah, and you're not surprised.
Yeah. I get it.
I mean, I'm remarried.
3 times.
No, I'm married 3 times, remarried twice.
I'm sorry.
It's bad enough the way it sounds. Let's not make it worse. So, I am not remarried 3 times. Okay. By the way, my wife, who's as real as the day is long, in her wedding band, she had inscribed 003. That's pretty cute, isn't it? Daniella, it sounds good, right? Yeah, she's a live wire. So that's. By the way, I would have been very happy to marry once. But I am a big advocate of marriage. I don't quite understand, because divorce is such hell. that's what would prevent you from marrying again? But wouldn't you want the model to your children of a married mom?
Well, I am modeling. They do see a very loving relationship, and they see how much I'm supported and...
Well, so what if they say, though, I have a loving relationship with a guy and I don't want to get married,
No,
just like you, Mom?
I'm very much for marriage, and I absolutely talk to them all the time about what healthy marriage is today, because I absolutely believe in the sanctity of marriage, and I want all of my kids to have the wisdom and experience that I wish I had equipped. You know, in my generation, it was like, you get married and you figure it out. But in today's generation, the millennials are doing everything backwards. They're meeting, they're moving in together, they're cohabitating with their own finances. Maybe they'll even have a kid together, and getting married comes at the end because they don't want the surprises. They are a lot more realists because divorce is all around. Divorce is the epidemic of the country. Who doesn't know someone who's divorced? And this is what shapes our future generations. I absolutely believe in marriage, and I want my children properly prepared for that. But at this time in my life, it's not something.
Oh, so you're not disqualified?
Oh no, absolutely not.
Oh, okay, I feel
Just
better.
for me, you asked for me.
By the way,
Yeah.
I just want to say to Daniella's credit that I could challenge her like this in public on the issue. It's to the credit of this procedure of my dialoguing with people that I feel uninhibited. I don't censor myself, and I care deeply about remarriage. My view on remarriage is the same as if you had a terrible car crash, you should go back to driving. Divorce is a terrible car crash.
Get back on the horse.
But you should still go back to driving. There's no such thing as a safe life that is also full. But anyway, I'm very happy. Why doesn't he come to Dominion?
Well, this is one of the reasons I was not interested in dating him. He describes himself as an atheist.
Oh, so fine. This is the atheist minion.
Yes.
Why wouldn't an atheist come to Dominion? I can't think of one good reason. I'm not joking. It's intellectual, it's alive. People from every conceivable background. 25% of the people here are probably agnostic. They know it's good to have God, but I don't know. They don't know if there is one. He'd be totally comfortable.
Oh, for sure he'd be comfortable. It was awesome.
So yes. Does he know who I am? I'm not being cute.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe I would be a draw.
Yeah. Well, let's not agree.
Yes, the baby.
I introduced your work to him.
Yeah.
And so now he knows who you are, and he knows who Larry Elder is. Everything that I've done, he's become a part
Tell
of.
him Larry Elder comes to me. I don't care what gets him here. I'll bring Larry Elder to the meeting. You tell me he comes, I'll bring Larry Elder to the meeting.
Okay, I'll tell him that you were personally invited because he
That's
definitely knows
correct.
who you are now.
Yes,
It's a very
exactly.
big deal. Yes.
Right, oh my God. My concern though, you're a desirable, healthy woman. I mean, we're delighted to have you with me, and I know I mean that.
Thank you.
And by the way, your mother shows up
Yes, I
periodically.
do. She loves it.
Yes, that's right. Is she, what is the story with your father?
But they're happily married over 50 years.
Is that right?
Yes.
So your parents are married 50 years
He's
too?
bicultural. My
How
dad-
did they react to you getting divorced?
You know, my dad is very old school, Israeli, Iraqi, and so the gender roles are a lot more defined from his generation, but he saw exactly what I was up against, and like a good father, completely understood and supported the demise. Listen, no one wants a divorce. My parents were always on the side of the marriage. It's not great to have in-laws who are,
Yes, that's right.
who are
Yeah.
automatically on the side of a child. But, relationships are a moving entity. And you need two people to move as the relationship moves. If one gets stuck and set,
Look, I don't know why it's a mitzvah to be miserable. Life is hard enough.
it's a mitzvah to get a divorce.
It is a mitzvah. That, by the way, Rashi says that.
Yeah.
That divorce is one of the 613 mitzvahs.
That is what
It's
makes
it sounds odd, but
Yeah.
Judaism is very realistic about the human condition. If the rabbis say if your soup isn't hot enough, you can divorce. divorce. Now, they're not idiots. They didn't think if you divorce because your soup isn't hot enough, there's something wrong with you. But what they said was, who are we to judge why people divorce? It's allowed in our religion. God wants, I just want to say this, Daniella. I think God wants us to be happy. I think God wants us to enjoy life. And I think Judaism, at its best, because it has very ascetic, anti-joy tendencies in the legal world, to be perfectly honest. I don't romanticize Judaism, but I also credit it for a great deal. So on the divorce issue, it is no mitzvah to be miserable. God is not looking, oh, they stayed miserable for 40 years, congratulations. That is not a Jewish view. Right? So I'm on your side.
I'm always amazed at our religion, how progressive it truly is. I mean, back in the day of even the Middle Ages, when women were viewed and children were viewed as property, there was the idea of Eshet Chayil and Shalom Bayis and all these beautiful concepts.
Well, women as property is not that bad. That was a joke, folks. Hello.
6 wives, yeah.
No. The rabbis had it. They were very anti-polygamy. What is it? Ben Ashima, Ben Agot.
But wait, did King David?
No, King Solomon.
Solomon.
Well, that was a difference. And there was King Hefner. But more wives, more problems. By the way, it's completely true. I mean, the thought, I understand concubines, that every man understands that. But another wife.
It's the same thing like Mabene Chassid, Mabene.
That's right. If you have too many things that you own, too many problems. That's exactly right. So one final thing. What brought you to Dominion?
Prageru and Daily Wire are the 2 ports in the storm that many of us have come to rely on in this chaos, and we are so grateful.
By the way, we're very, very close to Daily Wire. Jeremy Boring, who runs it, of course, Ben Shapiro, who is the public figure of it.
And Candace Owens.
And I'm very happy you're here. By the way, it's not unheard of to bring a kid.
Yeah.
No, I'm not kidding. I mean,
I'll bring my easy one.
Bring the easy one. That's right. Yeah, we'll embrace her. I'm telling you. We'll all adopt her.
No, she listens.
Yes, she does. Oh, Uncle Dennis then.
She's wonderful.
Okay, I'll be uncle.
Yeah, I was also going to say something that I was listening to this week. In Israel, wherever you go, whether you're secular or not, or religious, you're always hearing the language of Todah La'el, Bezrat Hashem, Baruch Hashem. You're always hearing the language of Shabbat Shalom. You're always hearing the language of God, of a higher source, and be grateful. You don't have any of that in America. There is no well-wishing. Because, and I remember what you said was taken out of schools in 1962, and it's become never more apparent now. The absence of God, especially in schools, but just to each other. And that follows what you're saying about why Israelis, if they do go to shul, it should be religious. It should be what
Christina, we have everything in common, don't we?
Yeah, everything.
I'm watching Christina this whole time.
I tell my kids, and they're French when they speak, they're trying to say Gesundheit.
Right.
As opposed to bless you.
As opposed to bless you, or may God bless you.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
I hope you come along, Christina. Daniella, we love you. Good luck. Shabbat shalom, everybody.